The greatest art heist in history wasn't pulled off by criminal masterminds. It wasn't planned by international art dealers. It wasn't some Ocean's 11 operation. It was probably done by two petty crooks who didn't even know what they were stealing. $500 million in paintings. Gone in 81 minutes, and 36 years later, 0 arrests, 0 recovered artworks, and on the walls of a Boston museum, 13 empty frames still hang, waiting. But here's the part nobody talks about. The reason those frames are empty isn't because of the thieves. It's because of a dead woman's will. In 1903, a woman named Isabella Stewart Gardner opened a museum in Boston. Not just any museum. She'd built a Venetian palazzo, stone by stone, in the middle of Massachusetts. She spent decades collecting Rembrandts, Vermeers, Degas, Titian. She personally chose where every single piece hung, every chair, every sculpture, every painting. And then she did something extraordinary. In her will, she wrote one clause that would change everything. Nothing in this collection can ever be moved. Not rearranged, not loaned, not replaced. If anything is permanently altered, the entire collection gets sold to Harvard University. Think about that for a second. She didn't just build a museum. She froze it in time, forever. For 87 years, everything stayed exactly where Isabella put it. Until one night in March 1990, rules March 17th and 1990, St. Patrick's Day, Boston's biggest party. The parade in South Boston drew hundreds of thousands of people, and nearly every available police officer. By midnight, the Fenway neighborhood, where the Gardner Museum sits, was essentially unguarded. Inside the museum, the overnight security was 2 guards, part-time, minimum wage. One of them, a 23-year-old named Rick Abath, had just come from a Grateful Dead concert. No external cameras, no direct police alarm, just a panic button connected to a private security company. At 12:49 a.m., something strange happened. Motion detectors recorded Abath making an unexplained trip to a gallery. He opened a door that shouldn't have been opened. Was he checking that the coast was clear? Or just a bored kid wandering? We'll never know. But 35 minutes later, everything changed. 1:24 a.m. The side door buzzer rang. 2 men in Boston police uniforms. We're responding to a report of a disturbance. Museum policy was clear. Do not let anyone in after hours. Rick Abath buzzed them in. The taller one walked in first. Calm, polite. He looked at Abath and said, "You look familiar. I think there's a warrant out for your arrest." Before Abath could process it, he was in handcuffs. His partner Randy Heston, same thing. Both duct-taped and cuffed to pipes in the basement. And then came the strangest 81 minutes in art history. They sliced Rembrandt's Storm on the Sea of Galilee, his only seascape ever painted, right out of its frame. They pulled Vermeer's The Concert off the wall, one of only 34 Vermeers in existence, worth $250 million. They took a Manet, 5 Degas sketches, a Chinese bronze vessel, even a bronze eagle finial. But here's what's wild. They walked right past the most valuable painting in the entire museum, Titian's The Rape of Europa, worth more than anything they stole. They didn't even look at it. If you're a professional art thief, that's the one painting you take, unless you have no idea what you're looking at. At 2:45 a.m., the thieves walked out the side door. A red Dodge Daytona was seen pulling away. They'd also taken the security videotape. At 8:15 a.m., the day shift arrived, found the guards in the basement, called the director. 13 masterpieces. Gone. The museum announced a reward. $1 million. Then 5, then 10. 10 million. The largest reward ever offered by a private institution. The FBI launched one of the longest investigations in American history, and what they found was bizarre. The two primary suspects, George Reisfelder and Leonard DiMuzio, not art world figures, not master criminals, just two guys from Boston's underworld. Reisfelder, a drug addict with mob connections. DiMuzio, small-time crook, connected to Carmelo Merlino, a mob associate running an auto repair shop in Dorchester. The FBI's theory, these guys thought they'd make quick cash. They had no idea they'd committed the largest property crime in American history. And then an informant came forward, a man named Ronnie Meatball Bowes. His claim? Rembrandt's Christ in the Storm on the Sea of Galilee was transported from Boston to Philadelphia mobsters in a chicken truck, with a mob associate nicknamed the Jackrabbit, a $250 million masterpiece, in a truck used for poultry delivery. But here's the twist that killed the investigation. Within 18 months of the heist, both primary suspects were dead. Reisfelder, drug overdose. DiMuzio, found shot, stuffed in a car trunk. Merlino died in prison in 2005. Every person who might have known where the paintings are is gone. Rick Abath lived 34 more years after that night. He passed 2 lie detector tests. The lead FBI agent cleared him, but the question never left. Was he complicit? Or was he just a 23-year-old kid who made a mistake that cost humanity $500 million in irreplaceable art? He never hid. He never ran. He wrote his college thesis about it. I was just this hippie guy who wasn't hurting anything, he told NPR. The next day, I was on everybody's radar for the largest art heist in history. And when they handcuffed him to the pipes in the basement, he started singing Bob Dylan, I Shall Be Released, for hours. A song about freedom, sung by a man chained to a wall, while $500 million in art walked out the door. Rick Abath died in 2024. He never got his answer. Neither did we. In 1994, 4 years after the heist, the museum made a decision. They hung the empty frames back on the walls, not as placeholders, not as a reminder to fix things later, as art. Remember, Isabella Gardner's will, nothing can be moved, so the frames stay, and inside them, nothing. The absence itself is on permanent display. Today, those 13 empty frames are the most photographed feature in the museum, more famous than any painting still hanging. Visitors stand in front of blank walls where Rembrandt's only seascape hung for nearly a century. Rivermere's The Concert glowed for 98 years. The absence is the art now. And somewhere, in a basement, in a storage unit, maybe still in that chicken truck, $500 million in human achievement sits, possibly deteriorating, possibly 10 feet from someone who has no idea what they have. In 2013, the FBI made an announcement. We believe we know the identities of the thieves. No arrests followed. No art was recovered. A revelation that revealed nothing. In 2026, retired FBI agent Jeffrey Kelly published 13 Perfect Fugitives. He named the suspects. All dead. The $10 million reward remains unclaimed. The 13 frames remain empty. The investigation remains open, and every morning a guard walks past those frames, past the spot where Vermeer's The Concert used to hang. The most polite criminals in history committed the largest property crime in history, and then they disappeared. Along with the art, if you want to know what happens when an entire empire crumbles because of one person's decision, that's next week's story. To bat all suggestions, 5 options. 1, 13 empty frames. The 500 mix-in heist dollars bractiv. 500 millions art heist that stumped the FBI for 36 years. 53 SARS. 4. A 250 million Rembrandt was transported in a chicken truck. 52 SARS. 5. The dumbest heist that became history's greatest mystery. 56 SARS.